Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Hour of Healing. Again, I am your weekly host, Joe Deborah, and we have with us our dear friend, brother, and mentor, Dr. Bright Ajay. Friends, he promised he was going to be back with us shortly, and yes, he has kept to his word. He's here with us today, and our topic for discussion is an open door. We are talking about open doors today. And friends, that gets me excited because even though I don't know where we are going yet, I believe I have an idea what God has in store for us through his servant. Again, Dr. Brighter J is a doctor of physical therapy and also works as a real estate agent in the state of Texas. He is happily married with two beautiful kids. He is a man of God, and yes, he does have a fellowship, Christ Ambassadors, where they share the love of God, the wisdom of God, and the nature of God. If you are ever around Frisco, Texas area, I want you to check them out. It's a growing fellowship, and yes, we have to still make a trip there, and God being so good, we will make it this year. But friends, help me welcome Dr. Brighter J to Hour of Healing once again. Dr. Brighter J, please welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Wood.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Bright, every time you have been here, God, by his mercies, has helped us. He has taught us. He has guided us. And we believe today is not going to be any different. So let's get right into it and set the table for our discussion today. So, Dr. Bright, when we talk about open doors, where are we going today?
It's interesting the way, for those of us who are people of faith, the Spirit of God leads, right? Because literally, as you do the introduction, where that drop in my spirit is barriers. I thought of it in terms of where if you talk about a door is a barrier.
Correct.
Literally. And so it puts me in a position when we talk about open doors, we're talking about overcoming barriers.
Yes.
And the picture I get is there are all kinds of barriers. And so hopefully as we go through our discussion, we'll figure out how to overcome some of those, because not every one of them may be applicable to us. Each
Yes.
their own. And interestingly, again, when it talks about open doors, we live in a place where you can get to some places and they're automatic doors, which means the barriers automatically open for you.
Yes.
But there are those that you actually have to open the door. And approach both of them in the same way. And so it's interesting that, yes, that may be a key phrase, because I believe the Spirit of the Lord drops that on purpose. That's the one word if somebody takes away from this barriers and then figure out as an individual level, what are the barriers that we really face.
Wow, powerful, powerful. And I am so excited. Earlier this morning, when we had gotten in touch and I had sent you the topic, I was actually at a barbershop with my kids. And when I sent you the topic, I started contemplating, and it dawned upon me, and I don't do this often. And I think in the 4 years we've been doing Hour of Healing, I've actually done it once, where it occurred to me to make a declaration on the topic we're going to actually talk about. And it happened today that after our conversation, or in the midst of the conversation, it was impressed on me to make a declaration on it that certain barriers will be overcome. And so it's so amazing that as I'm talking about the introduction, you hear this word in your spirit, and it is barriers. So, friends, forgive us. This is what we do. And welcome to our life. But I believe that you will be blessed. You will be blessed. And Dr. Bright, whenever we talk about doors and barriers and all that, I believe with all my heart that every barrier has a potential of being an access point, because doors are put in place to separate a room from another, or a space from another. And so it's very important that we understand this concept of barriers per se, because if it is put in place to separate two spaces, then it is there for a reason.
Right.
So before we even get to the open part, what is it about doors that makes them so important?
So it does, as you said, can serve multiple different purposes, right? Uh, Definitely, one of the easiest things you think of is keep certain things within, and certain things outside.
Mm.
And so, depending on what perspective, depending on where you are, it's either you let something through, or it's a barrier that stops something from coming through. And
Mm.
so, when we talk about doors, it's all about the purpose, the intent of the individual, what's behind
Mm.
it. I think of it, you talk about real estate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some people still like houses that are sectioned off. They
Correct.
like clearly defined areas,
Mm.
dining room, living room, whatever you want to call it. There are those who also like open floors,
Mm.
everything to be in one big space. So at the end of the day, I think you tie the barriers to what is the goal? What's the purpose do you have in mind at the end of the day? Because what are you
Mm.
trying to accomplish? That is what would define whether you want something coming in or you want to stay in out.
Mm.
In and of itself, not necessarily bad. Because if you keep what you want out, that's a good outcome. Because that's what you
Very
hope,
true.
versus if you keep what's also inside contained, that's also a good outcome. And so I
Mm.
think sometimes all in the proper perspective, how we're looking at it. That's why some people say glass half full of half empty. It's the same thing. It
Mm.
depends on the intent and the purpose of it. That makes it either successful or lack thereof.
Wow, wow. Then that means that knowing or discerning the intent of the door being in place is very important. So, how do we know that a door has to be opened or a door has to be closed?
See, that was one of the things after this one we text about. I was reflecting, right? And I look at it differently in the terms of we talk about goals and purpose, but I think also we look at it from a sense of we all have an assignment.
Mm.
At the end of the day, is what brings you that fulfillment for that assignment.
Mm.
That is what would help you determine whether when a door opens, you walk through or do you shut it.
Mm.
And so it's one of those, I think, again, it goes back to what is your purpose? What are you here to achieve? What are you trying to get out of it? And
Mm.
once you know that, then any and everything you do, you should be able to affect how that helps you get to that point. I
Mm.
give you a case. I had a young one I mentor who has been trying to become a nurse, registered nurse. It's been a tougher road than usual. And so with undergrad, they're probably 6 years in. And I check in and I ask her, so how's it going? And she goes, oh, I switched my major.
Mm.
And I went, okay, because I know you've dedicated all this time and money for the nursing. How come you
Correct.
switch your major? Oh, it's just tired and everything. And I could read in between the lines. And I said, did you fail a class?
Mm.
And she said, yes. How did you know? I'm like, well, based on your answers, I could tell you're not giving me straightforward answers. And so then my next question, okay, so now you've changed your major. What's the end goal? She goes, oh, I'm going to come back to do the nursing. I just need
Mm.
something so I can just get the bachelor's and be done. And I said, okay, so let me pause. Are you going to work with this new degree you're trying to get? No, but it's going to cost you time. It's going to cost
And
you
money.
money. It's going to cost you effort. So how does that help you get to where you're trying to be? Other
Mm.
than either sitting down and having a long, hard look yourself and say, either I give up this nursing goal if it's maybe beyond my capabilities, or
Mm.
what other efforts do I need to put in place so that whatever I do helps me get back to that goal,
Correct.
other than waiting a couple of years. Back to your question, I think at the end of the day, you have to have what it is you're trying to achieve in sight.
Mm. Mm.
That is what will help you determine that any door that opens, you walk through that because it has a part to play ultimately to get you where you're trying to be.
Mm. Mm.
Or do you realize this door is not for me? It may have been for the other person, but for me it's not. And keep your eye fixed and focused the goal.
Wow, that's a very powerful answer. Several months ago, when I had sat down and I'm writing the topics for the year, and I wrote this topic down in my phone, one of the things that I actually started asking myself is when do we know that we need to enter this door, like you're saying? Because sometimes what people don't understand is that even prisons have doors.
Mm-hmm.
There are people who have entered certain doors in life and found themselves in prison. And so I started thinking about it and I said, this will be a great topic for us to talk about because most of the time, let's be honest, when we talk about open doors, we're thinking of opportunities, we're thinking of favor, we're thinking of purpose, we're thinking of what? Access, things of that nature. But like you rightly said, an open door can also be a barrier, it can be a trap. And it needs discernment, and discernment is what you're describing to us, aligning with your purpose and your goals, which is where the fulfillment comes in. Because I mean, we've talked about it here before, right? If you're not doing things that are in line with your purpose, that fulfillment is not there. And so the peace that we talk about, these are all part of discerning to know that this door is open for you and not for the person next to you. So I'm very happy that you brought that up because I think in our day and age, one of the biggest challenges that we face, especially the youngsters, is that there's so much information around us. And so we tend to make hasty decisions. And some of them, we look at an open door and we just jump into it.
Right. There's so much noise and distractions. And again, as an individual, typically that happens when you haven't determined or defined what it is you yourself you're about. What it is you're trying to do, what are you trying to achieve? I see somebody who's very successful podcaster. All of a sudden, I want to become a podcaster. I don't know what the purpose of me become this, this is one of the things you probably get in anyway, but most people look at it as a destination. On certain things you realize is the journey, it's your lifestyle, it's you.
Absolutely.
That's why you can open the wrong door, get there, get to the destination, you're still unfulfilled or you're still frustrated.
Yes.
So for you, that actually became a distraction and a noise. So it really behooves as an individual, and as we mature, it's one of the first is that individually we even have to decide what it is we're about, what we're trying to do. That way, any and every opportunity that comes, we can evaluate it in the light of that. It may not necessarily get you the right way, but there are still some lessons you can learn to help you through that. But when you can categorically figure out like this has nothing to do, or there's no way, shape, or form it benefits me other than I can do it.
I can do it. I
What's
did
the
it.
point of wasting, and getting distracted from your main goal? So I think it really is, and it's an individual mandate. Like there's certain things everybody might do, but for you might not necessarily work. It's figuring out not what the masses are doing, but what it is, bring you that sense of fulfillment, that peace, and knowing this opportunity or this barrier or this challenge helps me or distracts me from being able to accomplish that.
Wow, thank you so much, Dr. AJ. I remember when we were in secondary school in Ghana, you would see people write on the walls, I was here some, right? And sometimes some people just did it because they wanted to be able to say that I also did it. And I think that is what you are telling us, that we have to look at it from the standpoint of what we are about overall. And if we know what we are about, then we are able to identify the areas of growth that these doors can bring us. I think that is very, very powerful. So I want to ask about the spiritual ramifications of open doors and things like that. But let's hammer a bit on this before we get there. How do we know that we are ready to enter into a door, or we are prepared to enter into a door when that door actually opens?
I think for a lot of people, that's probably fundamentally the challenge, right? How you know you're ready. Because sometimes you think you're ready and you find out you're not. Or the opposite, And so a lot of people, I think, because sometimes in the beginning, we don't even already know what we're about. You're not able to make even that second step with that discernment. I believe trying something and failing at it is not necessarily failure. That temporarily, there's still lessons to be learned. And so sometimes, hopefully in an ideal world, you have mentors. We have people that able to counsel us, to let us know certain bridges, to help us define or determine when we're ready to jump in, to help us sometimes even know where is the right place to start. They always say, well, preparation meets opportunity. So I believe as an individual, if you know what you're about, you're always under training. So in that sense, there are certain things you will never be fully ready to handle. But if the mindset is right and you have a student attitude where you're always prepared to learn, within the right parameters, you can grow. And I
Mm.
remember even how I came to this country when I first came, and I knew I wanted to go to school. So again, that was the goal. But I didn't know how I was going to pay for school because I did not
Mm.
have family here who can afford to help me pay for school.
Mm-hmm.
And so as we go about a regular business, it was when we went to phys ed is what they call them, PE
Mm-hmm.
class.
Mm-hmm.
They did different sports. So a couple of weeks might do football, a couple of weeks basketball. Well, when it got to soccer, all of a sudden they realized nobody could take the ball off me. And so all of a sudden, this was something that I may have been training for it my whole life, but without even knowing about it.
Mm-hmm.
God was going to use that to help me. But I still had to make a decision then to fully capitalize on that. Because
Yep.
I had never really fully trained as a professional. I've
Mm-hmm.
never been in any organized team sports. In Ghana, where we grew up, West Africa, we play in the backyard.
You just play in the backyard.
But all of a sudden, now I had to, even though I saw the door open and the window of what it is I could use, now came the actual hard work.
Yep.
And so if I was to base that decision on whether I was ready to fully, I would have not done that because I was nowhere near ready. In fact, a couple of the coaches in some of the clubs who wanted me after I did training with them one session, like, oh no, I think he's going to die on us. They realized I did not have the capacity to go for 90 minutes because I had never done training.
Wow.
And so, but because I was willing to put the work in and learn and it aligned whatever the goal I was trying to get to.
Mm-hmm.
Then I knew, you know what, even if I didn't make it, I would have still learned some valuable lessons along the way to prepare me maybe for the next opportunity with that. And so I think really knowing how to enter is all about what you can extract from that opportunity. And even if it doesn't get you to the end result in that very immediate instance, there's some valuable things you gain that will prepare you for the next.
Correct.
As long as you know it ties into what it is you're trying to get to, where you're trying to be at, then more often than not, it's okay to take advantage of it in the right way.
Wow. And as you were telling that story, one of the things or the phrases that I thought about is being faithful to the small doors that had been opened for you. So here you are. I mean, every boy and probably every girl in Ghana where we grew up played soccer, right? But even with that, you actually had to learn certain things from those who were actually good at it. But here you are, you came here, you saw that it could give you an opportunity to be able to do what you wanted, but you had to be faithful to training and building endurance and building your capacity to be able to play a full game, for instance. And so when you were saying that, that's one of the other things that came into my mind, that most of us, I find that we have met many small doors, but because we are only looking at the big door, the big opportunity, the mega contract or the contract of a lifetime, because we are looking at that, we're not paying attention or we are not being faithful in the little doors that have been opened. And I see that really with the church, for instance. There are many ministers who, because they don't have the big crowds yet, they don't put in as much effort in their messages, in their preparation, in their consecration. But those little doors are the ones that will lead you to the platform.
You want to handle a church of 1,000, yet you can't handle 20.
Yes.
I look at it like a staircase. How many people can at the bottom of the staircase just hop to the very top?
I can.
You don't want to do it. There are certain lessons you can only learn when you're down there.
Yes.
It prepares you when you get to that top step. On one, you can help somebody else navigate it. You can know, hey, you get to this first step, hold on to the handrail. On this next step, either step in the middle or step to the side.
Wow.
A lot of us, as we are wired, do not want to put the work in. Like I said, a lot of time when we talk about opening doors, people think it's somebody opening the door, handing you the contract without you doing any work. It's almost like once you get the opportunity, that's
Not
it.
in America.
And so you have people who even get the opportunity, but because of the work that has to come with it, inside that it was actually an opportunity. I used to have people where sometimes they want you to help them, for instance, immigrate, come to school, whatnot. And you could tell from your discussions with them, all they wanted you to do was pick a phone, call them and say, I've done the application for you. I've gotten the school for you. Here's the day you go get your visa. And you're like, really?
Yep.
But to them, that's how they didn't see the opportunity that sometimes even the information you're able to provide them that others don't have is part of the door that's been opened for them. And
Exactly.
so it really is, yes, the mindset thinking of you have to be grateful for the small things. That's why even scripture, if you can handle a lot of things, why would we make you handle big things?
Mm,
You
mm,
know, if you cannot take stock of the little doors that God wants to use as a stepping stone to prepare you for the next challenge,
mm, mm.
you lose that, and then we get the big one and we fail miserably.
Yep.
We don't
Yep.
understand how come because we refuse to go through the training. So, no, it really is when we talk about these things, it's nothing grand. And sometimes for some of us, all we have to do is look around us. God may have
Mm,
these
mm,
people to help us perfect certain behaviors in our life. But
mm,
because we don't
mm,
see those people as this or that, or because we don't get everything revolves around money. So most of us, the
mm.
mindset, if it's not money, then it's not, and we are missing that. Maybe that may be the conduit.
Yep.
Here I was praying to God, I want to go to school in America. But if I wasn't sensitive to the fact that when He opened that door, I wasn't able to claim, like, wait a minute, this is my ticket. Now I have to do the
Mm-hmm.
work. I will still be there blaming God, waiting for some sort of scholarship.
Yep.
He had opened that door for me to use that avenue because I
Yes.
wasn't raised an athlete, a footballer. That wasn't my.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of times, indeed, most of us have to look from within, and it's easy to blame others and all these things and the circumstances. No, 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 no. Realize that our stories are different, but that's what makes our testimonies different. And so we
Absolutely.
just have to be in tune and sensitive to that and be ready to grasp every little opportunity because that's how we're going to be able to build up and grow up.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much. That's a very, very powerful answer. And so, Dr. Bright, I want to now go back to the question I wanted to ask you earlier, that talking about doors and open doors, you already talked about the principle of an obstacle, that doors can represent an obstacle. Can you give us some examples of doors, physical doors, spiritual doors, and why they need to be an opening of those doors?
I like stories because I think they paint pictures, right?
Mm,
So some doors, like you said, we can deal with it. For those of us who are people of faith, we have the spiritual side. And so
mm,
sometimes you have to be very careful in and of itself, those around us.
mm,
There's a reason why sometimes there's a proverb that someone's going to get you. Sometimes the very people in and around us. Because for some of us, the goals or the dreams may be too big for others to
mm.
comprehend. And so in that sense, you have to be very sensitive who you share certain goals with.
Wow.
Even though you've been mandated to, whether through a dream, whether through a sermon, God has confirmed to you some way, somehow, that this is your purpose. It's
Mm.
not mine. And because my vision is not as big as that, guess what? If you bring that to me, what kind of advice or what kind of mentorship am I going to give you?
Wow. Wow.
And so I'm very, very careful and cautious. I always tell people that the only time you're selfish is in you're making of friends.
Mm.
In the sense that we all have to again tie into your bigger purpose, what you're trying to achieve.
Correct.
And you
Correct.
want to be with people who have done in reality where you want to get to.
Mm.
There's a
Mm.
one
Mm.
piece of advice and certain things they can give you. And my school story came as a quick side note for me, where I never would have thought I would be able to fund my school through playing soccer in undergrad
Mhm.
because that was
Mhm.
never part of the plan. Even how I became a physical therapist, I had gotten injured playing soccer for school.
Wow.
My coach's wife was a physical therapist. Prior to that, I never had an encounter with physical therapy. I didn't know what it was. But,
Mm.
so again, when that door opened, I realized, wait, I can do this. Now I just had to align with what I needed to do to be able
Mm.
to do this. There are also other times where certain doors open where you have to discern and know. And a big part for a lot of people, for instance, is marriage. Marriage is
Mm.
a big one.
Mm. Mm. Yeah.
We all
So
know
true.
the power of the wrong partner, what that can do to you. We know what
Yep.
the right partner can do and what the wrong partner can do. And so for a lot of people, through advice, maybe from parents, from trusted counselors, everybody is telling you this person is a no. Yet you go ahead and say it's a yes. Basically, in effect, one person, you've overruled all this maturity and counsel and wisdom. And then 5 years, when something bad happens, guess who you will blame it?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so some of these things, we have to accept the responsibility and accountability for that. I think marriage is a big, even career choices. But a lot of people, again, most of us, when we make this decision, we typically usually will run it by a few people. And so if the general consensus is telling you something, at the very minimum, it means there need to be a pause. At the very minimum, there need to be a pause. And so I am sure most of the listeners can look back at the time when they knew everybody was saying XYZ. Any normal parents that have raised their kids in the normal sense will never want what's bad for their children. And so I always challenge young men, young adults, teenagers, you name it, that if your parents are saying no to something, there must be a reason. They spent all this money, this time, this effort, raised you. What do you think they want for you? So if your mom, your dad, your whole inner circle is telling you, this is a no, whatever this is, I want to buy this car. I really want to buy this car. I think it will help me Uber and do Turo and do whatever. But your parents say the math doesn't matter. And so this is the wrong decision. There is need to listen.
Wow.
A lot of us, when we set our minds, we try to rationalize things. And so when we even being counseled against some of these things, we find ways to go against it. But these are decisions that can similarly small decisions. I mean, I've been on a binge watching a lot of these crime shows, cop cameras. When they arrest culprits. And half of these murders are always spouses, probably more than half.
Yep.
It's just crazy. And the same people are the ones who are calling the cops, thinking that by the fact that they placed the call, maybe they might be absolved, but almost 89%, yeah, way more than half, it's actually the spouse. And some of these, when they interview the family, it's sad to hear when everyone in the family had told this person is not right for you. They all knew, could see from afar, and had done everything. Yet they can't force us against that. We all have our choices. So really, I think it's very important. Some of these examples, they're all around us, financial decisions. You run it by trusted people. For me, that's a call group. You cannot do life alone. So the key is finding the right people to be that voice of reason to do life with. But when you do, when their advice or their counsel goes against what you want to hear, then it behooves you to listen. There's a reason. But if we go about it, but he will change or this or that, it almost never ends well.
Wow. And that is so true, because how many times do we hear, especially in our Christian cycles, that I married them so I can change them, right? Yeah. And I always tell my friends and those who are close to me when I hear that statement, and I say, worry about changing yourself. Because 8 out of 10 times, Dr. J, the people who get married to change the other partner are the ones who end up being changed. I can't count for you the number of Christians who are not Christians anymore because they married an unbeliever. Yes, there is a place, and I understand where sometimes we're coming from, that if we say we are sticking to just our small cycles of believers, then we are only going to be stuck with ourselves. That's really not what I'm saying. My take on this is, if you want to marry an unbeliever, change them. Ensure that they find Christ. Ensure that they get their act together before you marry them. Because Dr. J, you and I both know marriage enhances every single thing, especially the bad things.
The magnifying glass that is put on. Yeah, I mean, some of it is hard to comprehend, really, because if somebody would not change when they want to win you or gain, why would they change after the fact?
After they have you, exactly.
And so, and we talk about true change. It takes time. So again, that's where the voice of counsel comes in, because man can fool you, but can't fool God. And so a lot of these, that's why you rely on God, that the patience needs to come in. So some of these things, you may even be maybe the right person, but the wrong time. And so you have family and everybody around you telling you, hold on, not yet.
Wow.
Yet before you know, you run away and you looked. And then now you start facing trouble. The sad part of a lot of these that I was watching is sometimes when they jump the gun like that, when things go south, because they did not listen, now pride prevents them from going back and
coming back. Yeah.
And so a lot of times they've been beaten, they've been abused, and they use makeup to cover it. And And you ask yourself, why do you have to put yourself through that? You know, and so it really is asking for that discernment and trusting in the people that you put around is very, very important. People that you know will hold you accountable, going to be honest with you, can speak the truth to you in love. People that you know, every advice they're giving you is for your own good. So even if you don't want to hear it, they know you need to hear it.
You need
And then you make the decision. At that point, they've done their part because they can't afford it, you know.
Absolutely.
A friend of mine was sharing a story where he's an IT professional who's really good at it. My friend is about 45. He had a coworker who's 60. And the coworker came to him and said, hey, I want to get to where you are. You've done so well and everything. And he said, well, I see you have a couple of these licenses I want to get so I can be where you are. And he asked him, well, how long are you willing to work or are you going to retire? Because if you're 60 and you retire in the next 3 years, this is not a door you go through.
Yeah.
Because the certification will take you a couple of years to get.
Right.
And so again, it comes back to, even though it's an open door for that person, it's the wrong move.
It's the wrong door.
You know? And so is it worth putting 2 years into something? How much it's going to cost you? The time, the effort, and to be able to work with it maybe at most a year or two. Now, if you say you're going to work for the next 10 years, that's a different story. The funny thing my friend was telling me, within 6 months, he got an email from his buddy that said, oh, he was getting ready to retire. And he asked himself,
6 months.
6 months later. And so again, a lot of us, like we talked about, we see things happen, we want to jump on it, but we don't put together how that helps us perfect what it is we're trying to do. What do we get out of it? And how does that fulfill us, what we're trying to do? And seeking counsel, I mean, in this case, my friend could have said, oh yeah, I'll show you, without fully understanding where he was coming from. And then before you know it, now you've gotten something he may or not even have completed, but wasted time and resources to.
Yeah.
You know, so I also think really getting trusted counsel is very important. And you know those people you go to because you do life with those people. You know, it's not someone you just pick and go and ask one question random. No. These are people who go through like, who know you, who know what you're about, who know what you're doing. They know what gives you that joy, that peace, they know all these things. They're able to quickly tell or can advise you, how is this going to get you from point A to point B? And so it's very, very important that these things, as we all navigate life, in these barriers, some of them they're visible, some of them they're invisible, some of them we don't even recognize they are. But in instances, we've been alert and being able to make the necessary changes on the spot. I think that's what challenges a lot of people. Sometimes what happens and how you react. Like Mari, thought it was one thing, you got to realize another thing. Very few people will do the work on the job now. A lot of people will bail.
That's true. Wow. Wow. Very powerful answers. Very few people will do the work on the job. And so if you think that they're not learning to do the job now, please, if they're not putting in the work now, don't even think about them putting in the work after they have been employed. Thank you so much. That's so powerful. And Dr. Bright, I want to ask you about how we open doors. I think that's the major part of our question. But I think I'll wait on that till next week. We will start with that. And to conclude this week, I want to actually ask you how we respond to past doors, because based on the list you've given us to identify the doors that we can open or go into, like the counseling, the patience, the timing, these are all very pivotal. But I will be lying if I don't tell you, or if I don't admit that I have jumped ahead of the gun in some places and I have been late in some places. So yes, we all have doors that we were supposed to enter in that we did not enter. How do we deal with that, the past doors? And then when we come back next week, we pick up from how we open doors.
I mean, I think that's what makes us all human. There's a part of it where sometimes we can be too hard on ourselves. That's what makes us all human. You know, hindsight, they say, is 2020.
Correct.
If only we knew, right? But that's why we perfect a level of understanding. That's how we perfect how we become sensitive so that it doesn't repeat itself. I think life, it's not necessarily, you try to avoid making a mistake, but when you do, it's even more pertinent learning from it. And I know sometimes those of us who live like that, it can be exhausting for people, but the whole idea is we want to learn from our mistakes so we don't repeat them again. And so sometimes after the fact, if I go back, for instance, and realize, man, I should have taken this step, then I have to figure out the whys. One of the fundamental reasons I think is, for a lot of us, when a door opens, we look at the 1,000 different ways it can go wrong versus the one way it can go right.
Wow.
And that's what holds a lot of us back. And it's true. Anytime we talk about doors and barriers, it's all about risks.
Yes.
And so there are certain risks we are comfortable with, and there are certain risks we are not comfortable with. And so that becomes one of the main holdbacks. And in school or whatnot, I'm sure they say there's educated risk.
Calculate.
Right. Try to weigh it and measure a few things. So I think really some of it is in the preparation and the training so we can improve our confidence levels. So that when certain doors open, we don't let the fear of the risk outweigh the potential benefits that can be gained from it. As long as I think we know what it is we're trying to do and we're willing to work, and we take feedback constructively, we perfect it as we go. Again, it's not a destination. It's like this. I'm sure the lessons you know now, how you do your podcast, versus when you started. That's
Absolutely.
the journey. That's the journey. It's not wrong with that. If you were waiting to have known everything before you started, you wouldn't have started.
So true.
You know?
So true.
And so the key is that you start from somewhere, and as a student, you're willing to learn and willing to improve and overcoming some of those barriers gradually. It won't all be happening at once. And so we have to be okay with that, hey, this thing, I'll make a mistake. That's okay. But either I recognize myself, or when it's brought to my attention, then I do what I need to do to adapt and fix that. And then that's how we mature. I mean, that's basically life. That's how you get. Nobody matures without experiences. The reason why kids are so green, kids are so fresh, because they haven't been through life.
Very true.
As an adult, experiences is what you draw from, so that when you meet it again, you know, last time I was driving 100 miles an hour in the dark, got in an accident. I probably shouldn't be doing that anymore. Sometimes it's the experience of life, the maturing processes, being able to take a step and maybe making a small mistake and learning from that to be able to move on. That's part of it. And so I think we really should help encourage ourselves not to be so held back by the fear of failure, because that's a real thing. A practical thing. And a lot of times that's what weighs on our mind. How many ways we can go wrong? We're not very eloquent. We are not pretty. We are not smart. We don't have the money. We give ourselves all the 1,000 reasons why we shouldn't. This is the 1 or 2 reasons why you may be the right person for that specific job or task.
Wow. Well, Dr. AJ, thank you so much. That is so powerful. And what an end to week 1 on our conversation on open doors. Friends, Dr. AJ has enlightened that so massively. He has helped us to understand that when we talk about open doors, we're not only looking at opportunities, but we're also looking at barriers. And the fact that there are things that can be put in place that will help us know that the door that is open is a door for us versus for somebody else. When we come back next week, like I said, we'll be picking up from how we open doors. That will be powerful. Friends, thank you so much for joining us this week. I will remind you to follow us on our social media handles on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube if you want to see the videos. And Dr. AJ, always, God bless you so much. Such a powerful section. I cannot wait to part 2 because I want to know how to open certain doors that are in front of me. And so I am grateful that you'll be joining us for next week's conversation. God bless you all. We will see you. Bye-bye.